All right, y'all. So I'm here with Coach Bowie, Coach April, and we're going to just have a little conversation. It is the New Year's. We're going to have a conversation about what it takes to actually get results. We see a lot of people in here day after day after day after day work really, really hard in the gym, and they're still disappointed with their results. Their performance gets better and better and better and better, but the way they're looking, their health, the way their joints and stuff feel doesn't always come around. So what do y'all feel like some of the biggest misconceptions are about getting results? Like, what are people getting wrong in their minds?
I think, well, what happened to me when I made my transition was I stopped training and working out to eat, and I started eating to train and work out. Meaning that at first I would come to the gym and I would do an hour, hour and a half, and I'd be like, excellent, I can go and eat chips and queso and drink beer.
Yeah, like food as a reward because you earned it.
Yeah, so I burn calories, now I can go do what I want. And when I changed my mindset and said, okay, I'm going to eat so that my performance in the gym and in life got better, that's really when I started seeing progress.
Yeah.
So that's my...
Yeah, and I think that's how it happened for me too, is I got a weight set in the garage and I started working out. And then you work out hard, and then you're like, well, I'm scrawny and skinny fat. It's like, and then you're just like, oh, I guess nutrition's like a thing. So then you start with protein powders and stuff, and then you're still skinny fat. And then it's like, oh, maybe nutrition is actually a big part of this.
Yeah.
And then you run into, well, then what the heck do I even do? Yeah. And then the whole journey begins.
Right.
I think understanding and learning that a calorie is not a calorie burned or eaten. Calories aren't the same. A number of calories don't mean much, really, any at all. And how much you weigh doesn't matter, and all that stuff doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's all how much you weigh is a symptom of health.
Right.
For the most part. And then, calories, everything's treated differently. It's treated differently depending on when you eat it. You're more sensitive to insulin in the morning and right after you work out than you are in other times. So those, especially the carbohydrate calories, they're treated completely differently.
Yeah, and like understanding that you have to eat enough to fuel your workouts. And like you were saying, you started eating to fuel. But yeah, for me, it was eating enough and understanding that eating is, you're supposed to eat enough food all the time.
Yeah, you don't need to be starved all the time.
You don't need to be starving. You don't need to be hungry. There's no trick for when I'm hungry, I do this.
Yeah.
It's like when you're hungry, you should have something to eat for the most part.
Now, if you're trying to get in 2 weeks,
true,
I want to lose as much weight as possible.
Then
don't eat for 2 weeks.
Don't eat any food.
That's how you do it.
Definitely stop eating.
But if we're trying to balance performance, what you look like, overall health, and these other things, that's when you have to take a more sustainable approach.
Right.
That way you don't just bounce right back.
Right.
Yeah, and this goes back to what we actually talked about in the seminar, that the body wants to stay where it's at, right? So
True.
you have to kind of be gentle with it and slowly take it down to new levels or take it up to new levels, depending on which way you're going. If you go on that shock diet where you don't eat for 30 days, sure, you're going to lose some weight, but more than likely your body's going to want to rebound exactly to where it was when you start that refeeding.
Yeah.
So the slow and steady wins the race in
Definitely.
terms of calorie deficit or even calorie surplus, right? Overeating or undereating.
Awesome. So I'll make y'all roll your eyes real fast because y'all seen it 1,000 times. But just to give everyone else the perspective, we call it path results, and we have our little path pyramid here. And so the foundation of it is going to be exercise, nutrition, sleep, and movement. What we mean, should actually make it look like a pyramid. What we mean by path results is performance, aesthetics, tissue and joint health, and overall health and wellness. And so this is kind of the big picture. So what we all learned early on is that we worked out hard and consistently, and we got some results. So what we know is exercising the way we exercise will improve every indicator, or should be improving if we're doing it right, every indicator of if we're measuring our results. Then what we find out is that when we add nutrition into the mix, everything gets boosted even higher. So you can't get the full results you're looking for without these things. But then it took us even longer and longer to realize the equal importance and just the power that getting enough sleep and getting a lot of non-exercise activity can have on us. So if there was one thing that we know everyone in the gym is doing really well, is they're exercising really well. So then if we're looking at how do we get more people results, what we also see is that when we exercise, this supports our efforts into changing these things. So by exercising, it promotes wakefulness. The more awake we are, the more that promotes sleep. Exercise makes us more functional and usable, allowing us and making us more likely to move around throughout the day. So these things kind of snowball on each other. And so what that means is because we already have this in place, the next thing we get in place will make it even easier, and then that will make the next one even easier.
Yeah.
So most people go exercise, nutrition, and I think in all of our opinions, and I don't want to speak exactly for y'all, but I would go exercise just because that's where everyone's starting anyway, sleep. And then what that does is that snowballs into making nutrition and movement just so much easier from there.
100%.
Yeah, agreed.
So sleep, if we're not getting enough sleep, it messes with our hormones. Leptin, and I always get it wrong, leptin and lectin, with a P, leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin tells you you're hungry, leptin tells you you're full and satiated, and when we don't get enough sleep, those levels are off. And so if we're sleep deprived, we feel hungry, but hunger is just a hormone. We feel hungry even when we've eaten enough. So without getting enough sleep, whenever we're looking at trying to eat appropriate amounts of food, when we're tackling the nutrition side, if we're not getting enough sleep, we're just making it so much harder on ourselves.
And sleep is an easy win, right? Like that is, people struggle with nutrition. Most people, unless they have the competitiveness in them about sleep, getting more sleep is very easy to do.
Yeah.
Go to bed half hour earlier.
And it takes longer to feel the effects of nutrition.
Yeah.
You don't eat well one day and just be like, this changed my life. You're like, God, I really want sugar.
Yeah.
And with sleep, you get one night of good sleep and you're just like, oh wow,
It's amazing.
I feel pretty good.
It is amazing. Yeah, and it is easiest. Learning to cook is hard. Learning to go to the grocery store is hard. Going to sleep shouldn't be hard.
Right.
So sleep, most people wear not sleeping on their chest like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Every study, all the research points to the less sleep you get, the less productive you are, because your brain just doesn't work at the same capacity. So everyone looks at it as like a time thing, and if I'm sleeping, I'm lazy, yada, yada, yada. It's like, no, if you're not sleeping, you might be working really hard, but you're not getting a lot done.
Right.
And it's all about being productive. It's the same thing in the gym. If we're doing the wrong things, it's like you could work really, really hard, but you're doing the wrong things, you're not going to get efficient results.
Yeah.
And it's all about the outcome. So is there any tips that y'all do or anything y'all do in y'all's lives when it comes to sleep to help y'all sleep more, or anything that it's done for y'all?
I like to have a routine, like a bedtime routine. Try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. I wake up super early some days, and I do not wake up at that time every day. But the other days I wake up around the same time, go to bed around the same time, and I do the same thing. I always take a shower at night. I always read my book before bed, turn off the lights or dim the lights, I don't know, an hour and a half before bed, and like get into a bedtime mode.
Yeah, so your body starts recognizing the routine and starts producing or melatonin
Mm-hmm.
and all the right hormones to
Yeah.
start putting you to sleep.
Once I get in bed and turn the sound machine on, that's it. Goodbye. I hear the sound and I'm
Clunk.
see ya.
Yeah.
See ya never.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have a routine. I turn my sound machine on before I start getting ready for bed.
So then it's
So,
To
like,
yeah,
trigger
I get
the-
that
Ooh, I'd be
Pavlonian
like
reaction.
brushing my
yeah,
teeth,
exactly.
like-
I turn it on, start getting my room dark. I go
Mhm.
to brush my teeth,
Mm-hmm.
wash my hands, do whatever. Go have my little tiny light on. My
Mhm.
nightstand, I don't have the overhead light on,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll read for maybe 3.5 to 5 minutes
Yeah.
before I just start nodding off.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Put the book aside, and literally within 30 seconds of closing my eyes and getting nice and comfortable, I'm out.
Yeah.
The room is cold.
The room is cold, yeah.
They say, I think the recommendations are 69 to 71 degrees or something like that for optimal sleep temperature.
Mhm.
The other thing I do is I have 2 body pillows, one on each side of me, so no matter, I sleep on my side, so no matter which way I roll, I always have a body pillow to prop a leg up on to protect my back and make it more comfortable.
And that way you're not smacking into your wife.
Exactly.
And that's a big thing too. Is I know when Alex and my wife, shared a queen size bed a long time ago. It's like we would bump into each other and wake each other up all the time. Now that we have a king size bed, we each have enough. Oh, king size. Oh, it changed. It
It's
changed
life-changer.
everything. Because now we're not getting woken up by each other in the middle of the
Totally,
night.
yeah.
Which is because it's not just about getting to bed on time. It's about
Right.
the quality of sleep we're getting when we're asleep
Yeah.
too.
Makes
And
sense.
that was a real big one, worth spending money on
Yeah.
for sure. Or in our scenario, worth having it given to you. But completely changed everything.
I have to make sure that I'm tired, which we were talking about earlier, and I cannot drink coffee.
Yeah, so that's big. To be able to go to sleep at night,
Yeah.
you need to be
be
able to
sleepy.
be as awake as possible during the day.
Mm-hmm.
So usually, and everyone's different, but caffeine has a half-life. And so the usual minimal recommendation, I guess, is to stop drinking coffee by 3 or 4 p.m. For me, I've tried that, and I can't go to sleep if I do that. So what I found for me is noon works. And if I have it even at 1, I don't even think about it. I feel the same, and I notice myself just in bed, and then it's just like, oh yeah, I had coffee late today, didn't I?
Noon works best for me as well. It's, sometimes I don't do it, and I do. I know exactly what's going on. And
Yeah,
You can build up a tolerance to caffeine as well.
yeah.
So
Then you have
the
more
more
of
you
it.
drink, the more you have to. So
Mhm.
tapering off and doing a caffeine fast occasionally is extremely helpful for redeveloping that sensitivity to it.
And I heard
it's a drug.
Tim Ferriss and all sorts of those types of people, productivity people, talk about how they're real careful to cycle caffeine. And either they'll stay on it and then spend a week without it.
Yeah.
But what I hear that they do more often is on like Sundays, or they pick a day of the week where they don't have it.
Yeah.
And then for them, what they say is that's enough to not have the addiction and to keep getting the productivity benefits and of it.
So I'm gonna
So
try
on
1 day a
Sunday-
week without caffeine.
Yeah.
I don't know what day
Yeah.
to choose.
Apparently.
But what
have
I
an
would
addiction.
say, especially if you've been hardcore caffeine, if you go 1 day without it, you're going to get crushed with caffeine withdrawal.
Yeah.
So what I would say is
No, I don't want to ruin Sunday.
wean your way off of it. Drink this much less for a week, then this much less for a week. Get down to nothing for a day, and then have some coffee the next day, and then start the 1 day a week cycle. That's the way I would attack it.
Okay.
I don't know if that'll work, but I have weaned off of coffee that way before, and once I got off of coffee, I didn't care about it anymore. It wasn't until I was on a vacation and had a cup of coffee and my brain just lit up, and it was like, oh yeah, it's a drug that helps productivity, and it's like it's worth so much money to me to have coffee in the morning,
Yeah.
so that's why I continue to do it.
I love it.
But you have an interesting story about coffee late in the afternoon and kind of the positive feedback loop of waking up multiple times in the middle of the night and then being tired and,
Yeah,
and so
I
on.
would have coffee all day. I would have coffee in the morning, and then an afternoon coffee, I would drink it until the 6:30 class started, and so I would be like taking my last sip of coffee then. but I'm exhausted and I'm drinking my coffee to stay awake. And then I would be so tired that I would fall asleep quickly.
I think that's cool too, and we'll come back to that. But it didn't keep you up. You're able to fall asleep.
I was exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And I would fall asleep quickly, but I would wake up multiple. I mean, I already wake up a lot, but I would wake up every hour on the hour. Every hour. And it wasn't until I stopped having the afternoon coffee that caffeine is also in coffee is a bladder irritant. So it irritates your bladder to where, and it's a diuretic, but it makes you have to pee a lot because your bladder is irritated. Coffee and alcohol are the two biggest irritants, and so that is like you're flushing all of that out. So when I was waking up, I would have to go to the bathroom like all the time. And I'm like, man, I think I have something. I think I need to go to the doctor. And then it was brought to my attention that perhaps I should maybe back off the coffee at night. So it took probably
and it's hard.
Oh, it took 6 weeks of thinking about it. Just entertaining the idea of I'm drinking it and I'm not going to drink this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, kind of like saying goodbye to the nighttime coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing this for so long. And so finally I pulled the trigger, and it was on some sort of like vacation or something where the coffee opportunities were slim. And so I stopped the afternoon coffee, and it was awful. It was unbearable. And I would have like actual withdrawal headaches and feel like I had the flu. And then I would be so exhausted, and I slept for the first time the entire night, and I woke up and it was like 6:30.
Was that the first night, or was that one of the?
It was like one of the first. It was like one of the first 3 nights.
So if it doesn't happen immediately, don't give up on it.
I mean, it took a couple days, and there are a lot of other variables going on. Who knows? But I woke up and I'm like, thought it was gonna be like 1:15. I'd just fallen asleep, and it's the next day, and I'm like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started. I'll cut it off at noon, most of the time. Like 90% of the time, I'll stop coffee at noon, and then if something crazy is going on, whatever, I'll have it later. But I always pay for it, always, with not good sleep, getting up a lot. And then the loop starts. So then you stay awake at night, you can't sleep, and then of course you have to have a lot of coffee the next day because you're miserably tired from the day
Especially
before.
in the afternoon when you're having to
Yeah.
be jolly and coach classes.
Yeah, so then, you have to be like on, and it's all fueled by coffee. So all of that, talking about the pyramid, I'm not sleeping, so then I'm expected to exercise, and then I'm like, I need another coffee so that I can do this.
Yeah, so not
Workout.
sleeping, nutrition we know, hungrier all the time. Lack of motivation for exercise, lack of motivation for here.
Oh, yeah.
So that one little snowball there
Definitely.
just impacted everything.
I think changing your sleep will change your life. 100% make your life so much better.
And
I
it's the
like to
easiest.
sleep. I still would go to bed very early, but I would get terrible quality of sleep. So I had the routines and everything going, and I was like doing my due diligence with sleep, but it wasn't working. But yeah, if you don't have a routine, creating that and getting that set up and sleeping 8 hours a night, I mean, that's more, not more valuable, but sometimes I think you need to sleep first before you change anything about how you eat, because you can't operate. Your brain isn't operating, and your hormones are all out of whack, and you're hungrier, and I don't feel like you make poor decisions when you're sleepy, crankier. So
there was, and I don't know where the study came from, but I heard this from Matthew Walker. I know you might have been you got me onto Matthew Walker, but then I ran into you, who you've read his books. You're a big Matthew Walker guy, so we're all Matthew Walker fans. He's a sleep expert. There's a really good Joe Rogan podcast with him on it. But he references, I don't think it was on the Rogan, he did a podcast with Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and I think it was there where he referenced a study of sleep-deprived people, and they interviewed sleep-deprived people about how they felt, how happy they were, these types of things. But then while they were getting interviewed, they had another group of people watching them, and they asked them questions on things that they observed about these people. And what ultimately came out of it is if you're sleep deprived by tens of minutes, so we're talking maybe getting 7 hours instead of 7.5, or 7.5 instead of 8, or 6.5 instead of 7, tens of minutes, not only did you feel more symptoms of loneliness and depression and all of these things, but people looking at you rated you as less good looking, and they wanted to they were less willing, or they rated you lower on like, I want to hang out with you scale.
Interesting.
So not only do you feel more lonely and depressed, other people are thinking, I don't like that person. So I thought that was super, super interesting.
That is interesting, and I can say when something is going wrong and I haven't had enough sleep, I am a total disaster. Crying in the car, and I'm like, man, I think I'm overreacting. And it's like, oh, yeah, I got 6 hours of sleep or 5 hours of sleep, and then I get a good night's sleep, and all of those problems are like, oh, yeah, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
Everything's okay. But if I'm tired, then I'm like, the world is over.
So think of all the negative symptoms that come from not sleeping well, the negative symptoms from living a sedentary life, the negative symptoms from not eating well, and it's like now we have this whole just smash up of terrible symptoms that people are dealing with every single day. And that's why when you remove those negative symptoms, because now we're exercising, we remove these because now we're sleep. It's like just life gets better.
Much better.
It gets so much better.
So much better and easier.
Okay, so let's jump into now maybe nutrition. And since we just talked about negative symptoms, let's talk about some negative symptoms that may be caused by diet, eating bad foods, things like
when
that.
I eat too much sugar, my clothes don't fit.
That's a pretty bad symptom.
It's a bad symptom.
That is, yeah, that's rough. What I notice the most, especially just coming off the holidays, is when I eat sugary foods are my thing, then no matter how full I am, when I eat that sugary thing, I want to eat more of it. And I will eat not only that, but I'll eat more of other things.
Cookie Monster.
Yeah, I'll go get salty things to balance out the sweetness,
Ooh,
and then
yeah.
I'll go get more sweet, and then
Yeah.
I just go back and forth, and before you know it, I've had an entirely another meal
And that's
right after a meal.
that's actually a trick competitive eaters do. You'll see a competitive eater, if they're trying to eat like a big burger, they'll order a bowl of ice cream. Or opposite, if they're trying to eat a bunch of ice cream, they'll once they get palate fatigue, they'll jump over and eat some fries, and as soon as they change the taste, then go back and eat a bunch of ice cream. So that's a classic. That's good. You'd be a good competitive eater.
I like to do that.
So I thought I'd be a good competitive eater because I did that same thing, and I used to do cheat days, and it was disgusting the amount of food I could put down on a cheat day. So we went to, this was at our very first gym location. Right next door was this place called Big Daddy's. There was a burger place, and they had a 1 pound. The thing was a joke how big it was. Me and Adam Holman did it. And it was Adam, I think, went to the hospital.
I think he did go to the hospital.
It was so disgusting. Neither one of us finished it. But afterwards, I was just like, I need to throw this up. It's like, I can't have this amount of food in me. It's so bad. And I was like, I couldn't throw up. And so I was like, trying to it was so gross. But even grosser, I ended up being able to throw up simply by flexing. I flexed, and it wasn't even throwing up. I could just get food out. So gross. Okay, anyway.
Well,
that was a tangent that has nothing to do with results.
That's
But
an awesome story. Kids don't do that, for sure.
Oh, man.
Clothes. Can you believe no more
Yeah.
burger challenges?
But as simple as that sounds, people don't necessarily think about salty foods and sugary foods make us hungry. And
Right.
those are taste buds, and they're there for a reason because sugar is energy and salt is a necessary mineral, but we've just never had them in the abundance that we have them now. So yeah, you eat turkey and dressing and pie, and then you go and have some chocolate chip cookies, and then you start all over again. So you
And
just
when
naturally overeat.
Yeah, and when hunger is a hormone,
Yeah.
if you're doing these things that trick those responses, which again competitive eaters use to their benefit, when we're accidentally tricking those responses, it's so easy to overeat.
Yeah.
For me, when I eat like that, I can't stop the next day, in the next week, and the week after that.
Yeah, you have to break that
It's
cycle.
so hard
So
To
here's
break the
here's
cycle.
something for you to try next time.
Okay.
Try and cook a piece of meat and don't put any salt on it, and see how much you can eat.
Yeah.
You'll be shocked. And do the same with vegetables. Don't season your vegetables at all, and see how much you actually eat. You will you'll be hungry. You'll eat them the
And
right
then-
amount, and then you'll be
And
done.
then you will. That's actually a really good idea because you aren't tricking yourself with these like seasonings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you won't. I was telling someone the other day. I can't remember who, but they were like, how many I don't know, how many vegetables can I have? And I said, have as many vegetables as you want. I promise you will not overeat broccoli.
Yeah.
Because, you get full and then you like, well, for me, I'm like, and I'm done. I cannot put this
Yeah.
broccoli in my mouth.
Uh-huh.
That's it. Like, I'll gag. I'm full.
Mhm.
My body doesn't. Maybe I'm not seasoning them right. But, so yeah, that's a good idea. Because you will not eat very much.
Yeah. And I think that's why when we're working with our momentum clients, that the first thing we're doing is not focusing on calories.
Yeah.
It's like if we're going and going and going and going, we do want to check in to see. It's like, well, let's see how many calories we're eating.
Yeah.
Are we eating 5,000 or eating 1,000? It's like
Right.
we can't eat too few. We can't eat too much.
I
It's
feel
like,
like when people start measuring, they're often not eating enough food.
Yeah.
So it is good to measure it.
and then we can just by eating real food,
Mhm.
we can very easily control the amount of calories, and that's going to end up putting most people in a calorie deficit, especially in the beginning when they're used to putting everything on bread or a cracker. So when we get rid of sugary and processed foods and stick with real food that was once alive, so meat, fish, eggs, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, herbs, spices, oils, butters. Am I leaving anything out?
I don't think so.
Real food. It's really hard to overeat on real food. If you could pound some peanut butter and stuff like that pretty easily, but for the most part, meats, veggies, really hard to overeat those things. And so when you put the focus on cleaning up your diet by cleaning up the quality of food you eat first,
Yeah.
Definitely.
and just get rolling with that, usually that naturally takes care of the calorie portion of it.
Right.
For sure.
And if it hasn't, that's when we would check in later on just to see what's going on. And maybe there's a food that slipped in there that's just like, oh, you're really leaning hard on potatoes and you're having like 2 pounds of potatoes every day.
Yeah.
Or we're having a whole banana for every single meal, whatever it might be.
Yeah, agreed. And I think just removing some of these trouble foods like sugar, it balances out the hormones. It makes you less hungry naturally. In addition to you're just going to eat the right amount of foods, which all of that improves your sleep and then improves your exercise. It all feeds in together.
It makes the regular food taste much better
Yeah.
when you aren't eating the artificial, the
right.
sweetener. At least it makes. I've noticed that fruit is now the most delicious thing ever.
Yeah.
I had an orange yesterday and I was like, man, this is good.
Yeah.
Like, this is better than
Yeah.
ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
And most
And-
people don't realize how sweet fruit actually is, and how like, over generations and years we've actually engineered it to be sweeter than it was. But yeah, you toss away sugar for a month, and then you go eat a banana, and you're like, oh, this is so
Yeah.
much sugar.
Yeah.
And then you're
This is
getting
amazing.
Yeah.
and you're getting that same this is amazing
Right.
from something that has so much micronutrients in
Right.
it
Right.
and in the right quantities is so good for you. So now you can get your sugar fix
Right.
and be healthy
Right.
and promote performance and all these other things that we
Right.
need glucose for just through loving fruit.
Yeah.
And then also, processed
Guilt-free
food.
too, as well.
Guilt free, exactly. And then processed food, it's like these things are made in a laboratory by scientists, and their only job is to make them habit forming.
Right.
Which is why, if we were going to make something habit forming, we would take something, we'd write healthy on it,
Right.
and we'd add sugar to it.
Right.
And then we're smart. We have to put the ingredient list on it. So we're like, oh, okay. Well, now I'm going to use maple syrup and honey so I can call it paleo.
Right.
Or now I'm going to use agave nectar because people will read that and be like, I don't know, agave sounds healthy.
Right.
And I'm going to hide sugar in the ingredient list and call it healthy. And then now I have this habit-forming fake food that
Yeah.
I can get you just to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat.
Or something that's a sugar that's not even, we commonly associated sugar as like maltodextrin stuff, scientific names that
Yeah.
go out there and people like,
You read the ingredients,
doesn't
you're like,
say
yeah, I don't
sugar.
know what that is,
Yeah.
so it doesn't say sugar.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's a good distinction too. Added sugar and fake sugar versus natural sugar that's
Right.
coming from fruits and vegetables and these things.
Right.
Even though honey and maple syrup, it's natural sugar, it's just you get it in such high quantities. That's
Right.
why with low micronutrients, which is why those can kind of be trouble foods for people.
Right. Yeah. And that's where the paleo framework is actually pretty nice to think about. Honey wasn't always available year round like it is now. Maple syrup wasn't always available.
And you had to get stung, or someone in
Well-
your tribe had to get stung hundreds of times to get honey.
That and like the amount of maple syrup that if you were in the wild would find
Yeah.
is very different than what you're dumping in your coffee.
Mhm. And
You're
even
like taking a little and you're tasting it and you're like, oh my god, this
Right.
cave person is going mad over this like
Yeah.
lick of maple syrup.
Yeah.
Whereas we're just like dumping it in
Yeah.
whatever.
and sugar's natural too.
Right.
And it's the quantities of it
Right.
and that really get us.
Yeah.
Yeah, the healthy labeling and the fad diet labeling, whether it's vegan or paleo or vegetarian, whatever. Those, I mean, aside from scientists actually designing foods to be habit forming, they're also designing packages and all of that stuff in the supermarket to draw your eyes to it, to make you want to go and grab
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So they've got these labels: healthy, all natural, sugar free, fat free, blah 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 blah. And it's right there for you to see at eye level. And it's in this nice little cute package.
Yeah.
And
Then you
just
flip
wanna
the
go-
ingredient list around, and that's when you rage quit and you flip over and you just start knocking stuff off the shelves because.
Don't do that either. They will kick you out of the
They probably would.
But it's
But
so hard when you're reading labels. It is so hard to find something without all of this added crap to it, and then
Can't eat it.
yeah,
Just-
and then you're just like, I guess I'll just eat real food, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be doing anyway.
Yeah.
I don't need these fake
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Cool. So, any other? If we're sticking with in the nutrition ballpark here, I'll start with some food sensitivity stuff. And everyone's always arguing over, is a vegetarian diet better? Are blueberries good? Avocado's the new superfood, and you'll hear superfood a lot. There's all of these things. So when I eat almonds, I don't think anyone in the world would be like almonds are bad. Actually, there's probably some saturated fat people and that would not like almonds. Anyway, most nutritionists, most people would probably agree that almonds are healthy. When I personally eat almonds, about an hour later, I get a very high anxiety feeling, and I finally have figured out that I'm not actually having a panic attack. It just feels like I'm having a panic attack. It was weird. It used to happen to me on the way to the gym because paleo, you don't eat peanut butter, you eat almond butter. So I was putting almond butter on stuff for my breakfast, and then on the way to the gym, I'm having like these panic attacks while I'm driving. And then it took me a while to figure out, it's like, oh, I'm not actually having a panic attack. I'm having a reaction to the almond butter I just ate. When I eat wheat, my hands swell up and my gums bleed when I brush my teeth, which is disgusting. My gums don't bleed. I've been to the dentist. Good oral health. But when I eat wheat, my gums bleed. And then sugar, what I realize is not only that night do I feel terrible and I can't stop eating sugar, but the next day I'm unmotivated. I can't get myself to work. I can't get myself to work out. It makes the next day so hard. So ultimately, that's what made me give up sugar. Is I was like, for this 15 minutes of mouth pleasure, I'm not going to ruin the next day. But it took a long time to put together that my Mondays that were terrible were caused by my binging on Sundays. And once I put that together, my life changed.
Yeah.
So there, I think, dairy and eggs and peanuts are the three most common intolerances to food. There are others, FODMAP diet, like you said, almonds. I'm trying to think of some other, a lot of people react to beans and legumes. So there's a ton of different foods that people react to. That's where you start getting very individualized, and what can you specifically eat and what is causing you problems. This is where elimination diets come in, and that's kind of next level of let's get your basic eating aligned to the whole foods healthy profile, and then we'll start working on maybe this one is causing some problems for you. Right?
Yeah.
Like you said, almonds, healthy, no one would argue that, but in your particular case, it was an issue for you. Right?
Exactly.
So that's just
and
trial
then,
and error.
You know, imagine the slippery slope people go down. I'm eating almonds, and now I'm having panic attacks every day because I eat almond butter every morning.
Right.
And so I go to the doctor and I get a prescription to help me with my panic attacks. Now I'm taking medication, and I'm not saying to not take medication, but in this scenario, now I'm taking medication for something that's diet related that's going to help me with that feeling, but now I'm still eating the thing, and now I have all the symptoms that come along with whatever medication I'm taking,
Right.
and all I needed to do is remove one thing from my diet, and I would have been completely fine. And, you know, I feel like everyone's looking for the pill that lets them do exactly what they're doing in their lives and lets them get away with it. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know, everything comes with a cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have to balance that.
And how long did it take you to figure out your almond?
It took a long time.
Yeah.
It was on an elimination diet that I figured it out. The other thing is on that same elimination diet, things that I were eating that I got rid of was cheese, it was almonds, and it was red meat. And the funny thing is, I was feeling awful for a couple weeks. I was feeling terrible. And as soon as I reintroduced red meat, it has so many vitamins and minerals to it. It was just like having coffee for the first time and not have. So it was like my brain lit up immediately.
Huh.
It was immediate. It was amazing. The difference for me, and everyone handles things differently, but it was amazing the difference for me on what the benefits I was getting from the micronutrients in red meat.
Interesting.
And it's a big source of vitamin D. It's a source of vitamins you can't get anywhere else unless you're supplementing,
Right.
which is key because I wasn't supplementing. And it's weird you don't really want to just start supplementing things generally without working with a doctor and getting blood tests and stuff.
Right.
So that was interesting, especially with all the vegetarian, vegan stuff that's always going around.
Yeah. So yeah, I think if you're still struggling with food and having some reactions and things are still not going right, once you've got your basics of the diet aligned, then I think it's super important to work with someone and try these elimination diets. But it takes a while to figure out. And
They're hard.
to nail it down. It's very, very difficult to do.
Because you're very limited on what you can eat, and the results you can get from it is awesome. You learn so much, but you're very limited, and so then you have to go through the whole process of figuring out how to get this food around you,
Right.
which is the process you go through when you're going to change from processed food to real food anyway, but it's a much more difficult because you can get real food just at local places, but when you're getting rid of, especially I was trying to do a FODMAP diet,
Yeah.
so when you're getting rid of things like onions and broccoli and garlic and butter, and it's like you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You have to do it all yourself. And if you're not someone who already does that, it's a big change to make.
Yeah. Those can be super, super difficult. And again, you worked with a doctor, right?
Yeah,
So
functional
it's-
medicine
yeah.
doctor.
So it's super beneficial in my view to have someone to work with
Yeah.
that has some experience implementing those and can give you some direction on where to go.
And just giving you the feeling of like, oh, what I'm doing is smart.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm going to put all of this effort in for a reason instead of like, ooh, I decided I was going to do this and now 3 days in it's hard. It's like, why am I doing this? And it's like, so it's nice having the team behind you to back you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of along that vein, I guess the opposite side is what we talked about in the seminar was name your food as bad for you. And we're doing a no grains challenge for January. And I think we all agree, and you put it in the online message, that grains are not necessarily bad for you. There are some people, you're one of them, that react to them. Obviously, those with celiac disease can't have wheat because of the gluten content. A lot of people tend to be gluten intolerant, at least to some level. Wheat is also a FODMAP, so there's a lot of reasons to cut wheat out specifically, but we're also doing corn and oats, and what was the other one? Rice. So yeah, eliminating all of those just for a month, as long as you bring those back in slowly and stop and pause and think about how you're feeling, think about how you're sleeping. Are you cranky? Are your joints swollen? This month can be extremely valuable in terms
Yeah.
of understanding.
Just treat it like a science experiment.
Just an understanding if this little small category of foods may be causing some issues. And this is where I think these small wins can have huge gains later on down the line. A year from now, you'll be like, I feel amazing. I'm sleeping great. I'm getting good exercise in. I'm making progress. And it's just all because you eliminated wheat or corn or rice, whatever it is.
And we talked about it a lot because there's also the added benefit. So say you bring those things back in and you're like, oh, I still feel great.
Yeah.
It's like, well, awesome. But now what we're trying to do is for a month, you have to live without these vehicles, a sandwich. You have to live without rice in a bowl. And we have to learn how to create more options for ourselves and have meat, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds around. And even if you're not reactive to those things, it doesn't mean we should be eating them for every single meal. And so there's a lot we can benefit from. Even when you bring them back in, you're feeling fine.
Right.
Just having the ability to be like, oh, I know how to create this type of meal that's also healthy.
Right.
And now your options just expand a lot.
Definitely.
Yeah. And having your food actually look like your food. Like making broccoli, the plant look like a piece of broccoli on your plate rather than transferring it into some broccoli, cheesy, rice type casserole dish. Like just have it be broccoli.
Yeah.
And learning to eat visually like that.
That way, you're not replacing pancakes with paleo pancakes. It's like, no, let's just break. And it's like, that's not to say paleo pancakes aren't good or whatever, but like, let's break the habit of needing that and just learn what a plate of food can look like. And so that's a big thing for this month is let's just learn what a plate of food can look like, a healthy plate. And that doesn't mean these other things have to be gone forever, but let's learn what a healthy plate of food can, and let's figure out also how to get it around us, because that ends up being the hardest part. It's not eating the stuff, because the stuff tastes great, especially if it's cooked really well. The issue is not eating it. The issue is how the heck do you get it around you?
Yeah. You got any food experiences you want to share?
That was my biggest, when I first started getting healthy, was how do I get it around me? Everything I make is gross. But short of spending all my money on other people cooking my food, just takes a lot of experimenting. And I'm sure y'all have done the same thing. Is figuring out, trying something, it's gross, and figuring out how to make it better.
So luckily I love to cook, but
I don't even not like to cook. I follow the directions, and then, I mean, not anymore, but at the beginning, I'd be like very excited, and then I make it, and I'm like, this is disgusting. But once you figure out the power of like salt and pepper, garlic,
and I hate cooking, but I cooked Brussels sprouts and asparagus just last night, and it's like cooking's not hard.
No, it's
being a really good cook and making these elaborate meals is extremely hard. It takes a lot of talent. It takes passion and experience and practice and practice and practice. And those are reserved for people who like to do it.
Maybe I don't really like. I do like fine to cook my food.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be a...
But to get to the level where you can cook meat and vegetables and these things in a way, when you're eating them, you're like, this tastes really good. It's not hard to get to that level.
It's not hard. It's just a few spices and practice and failing a few times.
You do have to try, and you do have to be willing to be like, oh man, well now I have to throw all of this away.
Yeah, I mean, I have thrown away a number of things.
Yeah.
Inedible.
I at least once a month I
I
have to apologize to my wife. I'm like, sorry, babe.
Yeah.
That did not work
Yeah.
as planned.
But I think people struggle because they make one thing and it's gross and it doesn't taste like a cheeseburger. And they're like, oh, I'm not doing this. This is horrible.
Yeah, or it's chicken and broccoli for every meal. And then you're just like, that's not what eating healthy is.
If I had to eat chicken and broccoli every day, I would also not eat healthy because it's gross. That's not fun. That's not even worth...
Variety is key.
Yeah, so sometimes chicken, but then there's a bunch of different ways you can make chicken.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of other meats. And I think that is a big misconception is people want to eat ground turkey or chicken.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and that goes back to a big myth about fat is bad for you.
True, yeah.
And it's like, you don't need to be scared of fat, especially fat from animal meats. You want to be scared of really terrible animal meat. raised in a bad way, produced in a bad way, that's what you should be scared of. But when it's done well and natural, it's like there's actually ways they're doing, because a big vegetarian thing is how terrible farms are for the environment, farms specifically with animals, and they actually have ways to have carbon negative, so pulling carbon out of the air and produce livestock, which is pretty incredible. So it's frustrating when people get caught up in the way we do things is bad, and so don't eat meat, as opposed to there's a way that we can do this in a way where we can eat meat, which is extremely healthy, and we can produce the thing in a very environmental positive way. The same way we produce fruits and vegetables is unsustainable. What I've heard is there's about 60 harvests left with our soil, because the soil's just getting depleted and depleted and depleted. And the way we do it kills, I'm just making up a number now, but I think the number's in the billions of animals and birds, reptiles, fish, all these things. And then, throw insects into the mix, and I'm sure it's obviously way higher than that. But the way we do vegetables and the way we do meats is terrible, and we have to upgrade it, and we have to do better. But we can't let the argument of the way we do it is bad, therefore you should never eat it. It's like, no, we need to eat it, it's healthy.
Right.
But we need to figure out how to do this better.
Right.
Yeah, my recommendation is for people to eat the highest quality meat and vegetables they can afford. I don't want to tell someone that, is making $5 an hour that they have to buy organic and they have to buy grass-fed. They need to eat and purchase the best that they can absolutely afford. And in the long term, that voting with your dollar, I think Michael Pollan coined that, will kind of change the food system.
Well, it would
right
if
now,
we all-
we're stuck.
We are stuck because it's too expensive and no one's buying it.
We demand
And if we
cheap
all-
and easy,
And that's
and then we get mad when they make cheap and easy. And
Right.
then we're like, you're doing it wrong. And it's like, well, then pay more,
Right.
because that's what it costs to do it the right way. And it's
Right.
like, we can't skimp on the food side of things. But yeah, so if we're eating healthy, natural foods, we don't need to be scared of fat.
Yeah, so get a ribeye or something, or some
Yeah.
kind of piece of grass-fed beef, and put salt and pepper on it, and it is so good.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
it's so good.
the fat thing is basically, and it's hard to make any in nutrition science any definitive statements, but it looks like the direction everything's going. The fat stuff has been debunked. The meat being bad and causing cancer and all that stuff is being debunked. What they've been doing is comparing vegetarians to Americans, and it's like, yeah, I could probably eat nothing for a week and be healthier with my blood levels than people eating
Right.
at McDonald's every day. It's like, that's not hard.
Right.
There's also the carnivore group that eats nothing but meat.
Yeah.
That's insane also. And again, same thing. It's like, if you go from eating Taco Bell for every meal and then switch to a carnivore diet where you're eating good quality meats, it's like, yeah, you're probably going to feel better and be healthier. But it doesn't mean you're healthy.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And kind of along those same lines of protein being bad for you as a myth, carbs aren't necessarily bad for
Carbs
you.
aren't bad.
Especially when you exercise and perform in a way that burns carbs. If you're a long, slow distance runner, there's a lot of people doing really well on high fat diets and low carb diets, but we're in a glucose driven sport here in CrossFit. So carbs are not bad.
But if you're going to go along these path results, you can't eliminate carbs and expect to be healthy.
Yeah,
Like,
so we could eliminate carbs, and we could probably look better, have good tissue and joint health, and overall
Well,
health and wellness.
yeah.
But performance in our sport would likely suffer a little bit.
And I'm lumping like starchy carbs like potatoes and things into carbs. Like I don't think that we should be eating chips and breads and things like that. But yeah, I think starchy carbs are good, like you just said. You need it for the performance to feel okay, to do the kind of intense workouts
And
that
then-
we do.
Then we just need to be smart about when we're doing it. So,
Right.
one, if our goal is big weight loss, a low carb diet is probably probably the easiest way to go about it, just because it's really easy to overeat carbs. So again, it's not because carbs are bad.
Right.
It's just you have to have a lot more willpower, and you have to plan things a lot more when a high carb diet is in the mix. It just tends to be easier on the low carb diets. But as we kind of level out and we're talking about performance, I kind of like to look at carbs as I'm trying to control my body's response to insulin. And I want my body to respond appropriately to insulin, and insulin controls how my body stores and uses fat, how big my fat cells are. There's a lot that goes into it. And when you're constantly having high carbs throughout the day, every meal, your body becomes insensitive to insulin. So your body has to pump more and more insulin, and it has all these other negative effects to get the job done. And so I think I said it earlier, I may just be going crazy, but early in the morning, your first meal, you're more sensitive to insulin, and immediately after a workout, you're more sensitive to insulin. So as we're trying to balance all of these things, we can kind of get the benefits of a low-carb diet and the benefits of eating carbs, especially for fueling performance, if we just time it the right way and eat the majority of our carbs as first meal and right after a workout.
Yeah, agreed.
I think another thing that we've had a lot of, and I think all of us do it, and it's the first place we usually start our momentum clients, is an eating window and doing time-restricted eating.
Yep.
What's y'all's eating windows?
Mine is probably 8 hours is what I generally do. I generally don't have anything to eat until about 11 o'clock or noon. And then my last meal is 6 or 6:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sounds about what mine
Yeah.
is.
Because I
Oh, no.
also try and eat 2 hours before I go to bed, at least 2 hours, to kind of get that digestion under the way, so I'm not burning up as I'm trying to sleep. So,
And you're not all jacked up on
Yeah.
energy from eating right when
Exactly.
you're trying to go to bed.
I don't eat until most of the time until about 11. Depends on my coaching schedule, and we can't eat and coach at the same time. So sometimes I'll have to eat after that, but I won't start eating until later.
Yeah.
So it's usually like 11 to 8.
Mm-hmm.
That's 9 hours or so, something
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah, I think the research has shown, and this is Rhonda Patrick's website for anybody that wants to go check it out. But
I think hers is Found My Fitness.
Found My Fitness, yeah. Is that the 6 to 8 hour window, and it doesn't really matter if that's an early morning window or a late window. That's just that 6 to 8 hours seems to be optimal, and it helps with weight loss. It helps with your hormone balances. It helps with just a number of different things. And she's got a great article on there that is probably a 10 or 15 minute read.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's so many like health benefits to it.
Yeah.
And then it's when we're talking about weight loss, which is that's what a lot of people are interested in.
Right.
The other benefit is it's hard to overeat when you
Yeah.
have this short window
Right.
and you stick to your rules. It's like you don't eat here and you don't eat there, and it gets rid of all of these just nothing calories
Yeah.
that are happening early and late from snacking and just calories you just don't need.
Yeah.
So it really helps restrict you in that way.
Yeah, it also, what I found, at least for me, is that it helps reduce the snacking due to boredom, because you've got that compressed window and there's just not that much time when you're,
Yeah,
if
so
you're sitting down.
hungry, you need a snack. It's time to eat a meal
Yeah,
because your window's so small.
Yeah.
I will say that that's like the first thing that I nailed down is the snacking. I haven't had a snack in years.
Yeah.
If I'm hungry, I gotta have to go all in
Yeah.
and eat food.
And I think Bowie does it well. I'm the same way, and you're really good at just being like, oh, you're hungry. Okay, you're allowed to be hungry. Just be hungry for a little bit. It's like it's a human experience.
Yeah.
You don't need to be perfectly fed all of the time.
That's a good point.
And we don't want to be hungry consistently. We don't need to be starved, but every now and then, if your life isn't working out perfectly,
Right.
you don't need a tiny snack, which is probably not enough food anyway.
Yeah.
Just you can go without eating for a few hours. What
The
you,
biggest
you've
case
gone
that I-
3 days?
Yeah, I've done 3-day fasts before. I think I've done it 3 separate times over the last couple of years, and it's challenging. But really, after the first day, you realize the hunger comes and goes, and you drink some water.
Yeah.
It kind of puts you at ease for a little bit, and then you go about. And I've done strength lifting during that time. I've done bike riding. I've done normal exercise type stuff. I didn't try and set PRs, but I was doing my normal routine stuff. I definitely felt more tired, but I was able to lift the weights. I was able to pedal the bicycle. It wasn't like this big life-altering event that I put everything on hold for.
And what I've heard about fasting like that too, which is incredibly interesting, is that your organs will actually shrink a little bit. And they shrink because your body is actually getting rid of the damaged cells in the organs. And so that in itself, and it's just like exercise. Exercise in itself is stressful. It's recovering from the exercise where all the benefits happen. And so same thing, now when you refeed and you're getting back into it, you replace those cells with new cells. And so it can be, the health implications of it seem like they're incredible.
So what you're saying is, if you fast, you should not eat whatever you want on the days that you don't fast.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, and refeeding is the important time. That's
Right.
when it's even more important to have as much micronutrients and good quality food as possible to really take advantage. It's just like you don't work out hard and then just lay on the couch.
Yeah.
Work out hard in your recoveries, move around, do things, play around, because that will boost you way more than just laying around well.
And if you want to talk about getting rid of food biases, like I have to have this food, don't eat for 3 days, and I guarantee you that first meal that you get to put in your mouth will be amazing, no matter if it's just a plate of broccoli.
Yeah,
You will be like, oh my God,
I found-
this
yeah.
smells so good, it looks so good, and that first couple of bites, you're just like, that's pure heaven.
I fasted for, I guess 36 hours a couple times, and that was exactly what I took away from it, was whatever tantrums I was throwing about wanting to eat X, Y, and Z just went out the window. And it was like fish and broccoli, and it was the best thing I've ever tasted in my entire life.
Yeah.
And it was so good.
It's very, very eye-opening to go through that experience.
And then it's like, no, I don't want to eat ice cream. I want another piece of fish.
Yeah.
So I think this brings up something that I get all the time, and I know people think it about y'all too, is they think that somehow we are these special people that have extreme discipline.
I have no.
I consider myself to have none. So
I have zero self-control.
yeah. So
Zero.
I think that's the real cool thing. I think that's what we're talking about for a little bit, is it's not this disciplined life at all.
I don't buy chips.
Yeah.
I don't buy candy bars. I don't buy ice cream. If I buy ice cream, I eat it all, and then I tell myself I can't buy ice cream.
Yeah.
I don't set myself up to eat these
Yeah.
things. And I still have accountability people. I'm still like thinking about, I really want a cheeseburger and fries for dinner.
But the difference is you're at home,
Right.
you really want a cheeseburger and fries for dinner, and you have your good food right there.
So, this happened last night. I'm going home late. I have to get up early, and I'm like, I could get a cheeseburger. And I'm talking to myself, and I'm like, do I think I should get a cheeseburger? Definitely. I'm super hungry. I did brand today. I'm going to have a cheeseburger. And then it's like, I've already made the thing that I'm going to eat. And it's in the fridge, which is actually faster, because the hunger was driving me. And I call it the point of no return, when you're so hungry that you eat cheeseburgers because your brain doesn't care. But yeah, and I had to talk myself out of it, and I ate the thing I already made, and it was fine, and everything was fine. And then I forgot all about the cheeseburgers until right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm so glad I didn't eat that.
Yeah.
I would have been really pissed.
And so what we work with people on is selective discipline. It's not... I don't, we don't feel like we're disciplined at all. What we're disciplined is I'm fed, and I'm at the grocery store,
Yeah,
and I'm not stressed out, and it's like, I'm going to get good food. That way when I'm at home and I'm stressed out and I'm hungry, it's like my options are eat this good food that I've already gotten or go to the store and go crazy. And it's like, and I know just from experience, no matter how much I might not want it in the moment, if I just start eating the food, I'm going to forget all about it. I'm going to be like,
really
what are we doing tonight?
But I cannot stress enough that we are not special or fitter or more better at cooking or eating or planning. I mean, I make a list. I don't know if y'all make a list, but it helps me to make a list so I know what I'm getting at the store. I don't get things that aren't
But
on my
I would
list.
say you are better at planning.
I guess we are better at planning, and that's probably the only thing.
And that's something you can be better at like that.
Right.
Just try to plan.
Yeah,
that's all
and
you have to do.
I think these are the meats I want to eat this week. I get the vegetables, and then the other things I eat, I get, and that's it. And I don't get anything else from the store. Ever.
Yeah, I think that's the key.
I never buy anything different from the store.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It's like, I probably don't even need the list anymore because I get the same things. And I think that variety is good. So I might change up the meat, change up the vegetables, change up the breakfast.
But you know how much meat,
this is
how
what I'm getting.
many, like you know kind of the poundage and what you're getting.
But it's not, I'm never at the store when I'm hungry. I will buy tortillas for no reason and this for no reason, need it in the car because I'm so hungry, for sure. And people are like, April, you don't understand. And I'm like,
It's like, I've eaten cookies out of a trash can. Believe me, I understand.
I was telling Vidisha in our momentum meeting that I ate fudge out of the garbage 2 weeks ago. I threw it away. My mom sent a bunch of fudge. I threw it away, and then later, 12 hours later, I remembered it, and I ate it from
Costanza, yeah.
And it was, and I was
this is
like,
fantastic.
it was in a bag, you know, in another bag. It wasn't dirty, and I ate it, and I'm like, this is from the garbage. So really, I have to like take the thing
garbage
to
out.
the dumpster and get it out. So that stuff cannot.
And those are the
enter.
little things you learn too.
Yeah.
It's like putting it in the garbage
mean anything.
isn't enough.
It was in a bag on the counter. Now it's in a bag. In the
No,
garbage.
you got to take it out of the bag and dump
get
it in there.
real dirty or put it down
Yeah.
the sink.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not any more equipped to make that game time decision.
Yeah.
No, I'm definitely gonna eat the
And,
fudge.
and so the real difference is you eating fudge out of a trash can. No, but you breaking down and eating fudge. When that happens, it's backed up by years of consistent, not perfect, but consistently mostly good choices.
Right.
And so when breakdowns happen, which they're gonna happen,
Right.
it's not a big deal. It's
Right.
like, okay, you ate fudge, let's get back in the game tomorrow. Not a big deal.
That was in the middle of the day, so later my life went back to normal. I cooked whatever and
Yeah.
everything else was fine. And I didn't, I felt like, okay, this isn't good. But that didn't ruin my day. I wasn't like, well, I ate fudge, so now I'm going to order pizza and get some sodas and drink a bunch of beer. None of that happened. Everything went back to normal, and my life resumed.
Yeah.
And I didn't get fat, But if I were to buy fudge, I would eat it every day. Like, so the point is that cannot be around.
Yeah.
And I make my plans to go to the store, and I buy what's on the list. And I go to the store at the same time every week, and it's always the same.
Yeah, it's about being strong at the grocery store, not at home.
Right.
At home, you don't need to be strong because you can't. You're
Right.
going to lose the game, and you're going to eat it out of the trash
For
can
sure.
and get pink eye. That's why she was out all last
I know,
week.
I know, right? That's gross.
So yeah, I'm the same way. I have to have the right foods around, or I will completely go off the rails. My wife likes to make cookies. She likes to make brownies, and if they're in the house, like she makes them to take generally for someone else's birthday. So I tell her they are not allowed to come back once they leave the house, right?
Yeah.
Because I will eat them, and I will eat all of them. I don't go to the grocery store hungry, and to me, this all comes back to just having a plan and making sure that you're not doing silly things that are easy victories, right? Don't have a bunch of cookies in the pantry.
Oh, are you
that
kidding me? If I had cookies
know
right
are-
now, I'd be so...
Yeah.
All I'd be thinking about, not y'all, not this thing, is
Cookies.
when am I going to get them?
Yeah, when are you going to be home? And you're like, okay,
Right.
I'm going to go
Go,
straight,
go.
then I'm going to the couch, and then it's like, okay, I got it.
But there are no cookies there. I would have to go pay for them,
Mm-hmm.
which is a whole process
Right.
that I'm not willing to do.
So yeah, if y'all had that type of food in your house and never planned, if y'all
No.
lived like how most people live and still had all of your healthy habits that you did, I'd be like, holy cow, these are the most disciplined people on the planet
Yeah.
by far. But it's like, that's not the reality. The reality is have just learned over time to be smart and in very specific areas at very specific times. That way, when it comes time to make a hard choice, it's the only hard choice that day we've had to make.
Right.
And we haven't made 100 little choices leading up to that about what's going on.
Like if I had to go to work and decide if I'm not gonna have a breakfast taco every day,
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
No.
It's hard.
You drive, like, that's not an option, and having to make that choice can't be a part of my
Yeah.
life.
So that's what we work with all of our momentum clients on, is just helping them identify ways in their life and in their day to implement these tools and strategies that we've learned over time that make it easy. Because that's the other thing, is everyone thinks, oh, I could never give this up. I could never do that. I could never live like that. And our reaction is, I know mine is, my life is easier in every way. It's better in every way. I'm happier because I do all of these things. And because it's not a bunch of things. It's just I do them in very specific ways, and it makes everything so much easier.
Yeah.
I used to go, up until I was 26, fast food for every single meal. Meaning, I'd have cereal for breakfast, a bunch of it. But then that means I needed to go to 2 fast food places, one for lunch, one for dinner. So every day, for every meal, I was driving somewhere to go get fast food and driving somewhere. It's like, it was hard. And then it's like, what am I going to get, KFC, or am I going to get Taco Bell? It's like, what am I doing for this meal? It's like, oh, I just had Whataburger, so I can't have burger, so Wendy's is out. And it was every single meal I had to figure this stuff out. And now it's just like, oh, what am I eating for lunch and dinner? I get it figured out. And then now it's like, oh, I'm hungry. Here it is. I put it down. I move on with my life. Oh, KFC had like a little chicken tender bowl with like mashed potatoes and cheese.
I love it that you're laughing, Miss I eat fudge out of the trash.
We'll know if people watch this, if they talk about the eating out of the garbage, or that you ate the KFC bowl.
Yeah.
What is it? A mashed potato
something. I forget what everything was in there. Gravy was in there.
But something that you led to, along the same lines with the planning, is actually doing some meal prep, maybe once or twice a week, to where you don't have to think in the moment. You just go grab whatever you've already prepped.
Yeah.
So you Sunday, Wednesday, whatever your day is, and also doing that once or twice a week limits the amount of times that you're going to the grocery store, so you're not going every day.
Yeah.
And you're not tempted every day. So that's like a very quick, easy
Exactly.
win of, I go once a week. I have to make sure I'm fed before I go in there. I'm only going to get the things on my list, and I'm done.
Yeah.
I would say the grocery store should be like very, very limited. It's like a place. It's like a dangerous place.
It is.
And I only go on Sunday, and for me, if I forget something, I just go without.
And go well fed.
Well fed.
Because we talked about
I
just
always,
dealing with being hungry.
Yeah.
There's certain times, just deal with being hungry.
Right. Not
Going to the grocery store, don't deal with being hungry.
Yeah.
Eat your snack.
Yeah.
Never snack unless you're about to go to the grocery store, because even the smallest thing will help you.
Because they have like donuts, like where you just open it and eat it.
Yeah.
So
They
that
have people giving you free food.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
you want a sample?
Yeah.
You want a sample?
Yeah.
Like
So-
you walk and you run into 12 people
Totally.
in 2 minutes that are trying to offer you chips
Not
and
good.
dips
Yeah.
and cheese.
So I'll just skip it. I'll forget something, and I just will live without it for the until Sunday again. But the meal prep is smart.
Well, and people think meal prep and they think, I have to cook my food. I kind of think of meal prep as get food around you. It doesn't matter where it's it matters where it's coming from. But like, it doesn't matter. Figure out how to get real food around you and make it easy. But if you have to go get every meal in the moment, you're in trouble.
That's the thing. If someone asked me yesterday, do you meal prep? And I didn't know what that meant. I don't cook 7 days worth of food and put it in containers
Yeah.
ahead of time. I have a pretty, or I've worked with my schedule to make it to where I cook the thing I'm going to eat. Maybe I'll cook the lunch, like I'll cook my breakfast and my lunch and then have to heat my lunch up. But then I know what I'm having for dinner.
Mhm.
And the planning and the knowing what you're having is 99% of the
Yeah.
problem.
And then in the Momentum program, we hand people journals that help them kind of track their progress and keep up with the mindset of this stuff. But part of it is taking a minute to figure out where your food's coming from.
Yeah.
So just take a minute and figure out where's the first meal, where's the second meal, where's the third meal, do you have everything for it? Oh, you don't have lunch. Okay, where are you going to go get it? Oh, you're having lunch with a friend. Where are you going? And this is a big one. You're having lunch with somebody and it's a place you don't know the menu. Instead of waiting till you get there to look at the menu, and now I'm looking at a menu and I'm trying to have a conversation with y'all, you can't focus on, it's like look at it beforehand, know what you're getting. Not only is that going to make you get something that's healthy and you can figure out, but then you get to be present when you're there and you're not trying to juggle, what do I get? And you just get to hang out with your friends.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you're not going to be influenced by the smells of the restaurant.
Yeah, you're not going to be like,
Oh, yeah.
screw it, chicken tenders.
You walk
You're
into an
looking
Asian
and it's
food
hard.
place and it smells awesome.
Yeah.
Right? So if you haven't thought about what you're going to get.
And you get to see what's on everyone else's plate. Yeah, if you're smelling it and seeing it, and then you're trying to make the hard decisions,
Yeah.
it's like that's a recipe for. But if you're going in knowing, and you're just like, that's what I'm getting, it's so much easier.
Much easier.
So again, then the discipline it takes at the restaurant to order that thing is so much smaller than the discipline it takes to be around the smells, to look at other people's food, to try and pick out what you're going to eat while you're having a conversation with somebody. And it's just those little tiny things that go so far to make life easy.
Agree.
Absolutely.
All right, so last piece we haven't talked about here on the pyramid is movement. And when we say movement, we're meaning more like non-exercise activities, kind of the term that's going around the fitness industry now. And this basically is around the point of if you are sedentary for 8 hours or more a day, not counting sleep, and sedentary means sitting down, laying down, basically doing nothing, then no amount of exercise can reverse the negative effects of being sedentary for 8 hours a day. The average American is sedentary for 12 hours a day. And it makes complete sense, and this is probably going to describe most people's who's watching this, their lives, is you wake up, you sit down and have breakfast, you get in your car, you're sitting, you drive to work, you sit, you go to lunch, back in your car, you sit at the place, back in the car, back at the office, back in the car, you come to the gym, good job, we move around for an hour, sit down to cool down, get back in the car, go home, get dinner, sit down to eat it, watch TV, and now you've literally spent almost your entire day sitting doing nothing, and you got an hour of exercise, and you got a little bit of walk into the bathroom and to and from your car and to someone else's office, into the conference room or whatever you're doing, but you've spent the whole day sitting. So the real key is this is such a huge piece of the puzzle. We're lucky enough where our jobs, I think I wore a tracker just for one day, and my plan was to wear a step counter. And in that one day, when I coached, so only the few hours I coached, I had 15,000 steps.
Today I have, 9,000.
Uh-oh.
I need to get up.
But what time is it?
It's only 3.
3.
40.
Okay,
40.
so you've got plenty of time to
Right.
get your 10,000 mark.
Totally.
But we're lucky that we have jobs that make us do this. So it's easier for us to get it in. And this is an analogy we like to use a lot, is your body doesn't care why you do what you do. You can have the best excuses in the world. It doesn't matter. And I like to use the analogy of you could be imprisoned for a really dumb reason, locked up and given just a ball of rice to eat every day. It's a great reason for not getting enough movement and not sleeping well and not doing these things. Great reasons. You're going to be unhealthy, period. You're going to suffer on all of these things, not your fault. It's going to happen. So doesn't matter what your circumstances are. The reality is it impacts your health and your body and your performance and all these other things. So you have to make choices in what you do.
Yeah. One of my biggest fears is having to sit all day like that. I've been fortunate to never have a job that I have to sit for 12 hours. That seems miserable. But I think that some ways to avoid 12 hours of sitting is to not sit for 12 hours. So get up.
Yeah, or stand-up desk.
Stand-up desk.
That was something that changed my life. It was figuring this stuff out. But part of that, it was not sitting anymore. It almost immediately. Well, the funny thing is, it got rid of one of the many things that got rid of my back pain. I used to hurt my back every single year in a bad way. Now it's been almost 4 or 5 years since I've hurt my back. And a big part of that was standing. What happened is right when I started standing, my back was really, really hurting because I realized, I just stood dumped on my spine and I had to learn how to stand. But stand-up desk was huge for me, and now I don't have chair. I don't have a chair here. I don't have a chair at home in my home office. It makes a huge difference.
And a lot of companies now are offering stand-up desk options.
Yeah.
You may have to go through an ergonomic assessment or something like that, but they're trying to improve their workforce as well. So,
and you can
at
get
the office, you can get one.
Yeah, and you can get doctor notes from physical therapists. There's some in the gym. You can get doctor notes from them, and that helps. I think I'm not positive how it works, but I think that'll help your office maybe get reimbursed through insurance or something.
Yeah, someone just recently got a doctor's note from someone in the gym and submitted it, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And they were all reimbursed and now has a standing desk.
Yeah, and it's not like this shady practice either.
No.
It's just like my life was changed when I stopped sitting and I started standing. And for as far as my back health, and it's like I went to that physical therapist once a year being like, I'm broken. And I haven't had to do that in years. It's incredible.
Yeah, the other thing that my wife and I did or do is just go for walks, right? We try and get a 5K walk in as frequently as we can. Right now, she's better at it than I am. She probably gets 4 to 5 days a week in.
Yeah.
Where
Nice.
she takes the dogs out for a walk. It's beautiful right now in Austin, so definitely get out and get the sun. But
Yeah.
even when it was raining, we would strap on rain gear and go
Yeah.
for a walk. When it was snowing,
And not only is that awesome for your relationship,
Yeah.
going back to all of these things supporting each other, that extra movement helps lose weight here, but that extra movement also helps us also helps us recover from the exercise. It flushes the system, gets blood flow going, our recovery is better, so now our exercise is better. That extra movement wakes us up, helps us sleep better, and so it all just filters back together.
Yeah. And that one's pretty easy too.
And a 5K, do you have any idea how many steps
I
that
think
is?
it's pretty close to
About
10,000.
10,000.
It is,
About an
yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
Like
walk.
an hour. I was doing it for a bit.
Yeah.
And it is like an hour.
And for some of you guys out there that want to make it a little bit more challenging, add a weight vest, a 10-pound weight vest. That will help with your hiking abilities. If you like to go hiking in the mountains, then
Come to my neighborhood and do it in the hills.
Yeah.
Oh
It's
yeah, up the
different.
hills.
But yeah, just walk.
just go for a walk.
Yeah.
It's super easy.
And as far as productivity goes, and I hear different things, but typically it's like a 20 to 40 minutes of focused work needs like a 2 to 5 minute break to be able to come back and focus. So when we're thinking about, we're not just at our jobs for 8 hours, we're trying to get work done and we're trying to get results from the work. And you want to be as productive as possible.
Right.
And to be as productive as possible, you need to sleep more, which is weird, but you also need to walk away from your desk, swing your arms around, wiggle around, and get blood flowing, break your brain, and then come back to it. You'll be so much more productive and healthier for it all, too.
Yeah.
I think that's another relating to snacking is don't break for a snack. I think that offices have a lot of snacks from what I hear.
Oh, so yeah, people leave
People
their desk.
walk away and go get a snack.
Yeah.
And then come back.
Yeah, and that's a boredom eat.
Yeah, totally.
And not a.
And like the things that offices have, from what I hear, is like.
Oh,
these-
and now they're giving free food,
yeah,
like
it's like all free.
meals.
Yeah. So I think that it's important
Mhm.
not to think you're hungry.
And that kind of goes back into, you might be out of frame there.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know.
I'll sit down.
But you can come over here. But I think that goes, I forgot what I was going to say. But I think it goes back
Snacking and-
into, your body doesn't care why.
Right.
So if you have all of this free food, it's like, man, that's a perk of a job, and that is a great reason, but you're going to pay for it.
Mhm.
So it's like, it's everything is a choice, and it's like you're going to pay for that with your health, your performance, how your body looks in this stuff, even though it's free. It's not
Mhm.
free.
Yeah.
So you got to make those choices, and is the money, and that's what you said earlier, is like, is the money the driving factor? Because that, some
Mhm.
people that's the situation, but if the money's not the driving factor, don't eat crappy food just because it's easy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Get your good food around you, because
Yeah.
that'll make it easy.
Mhm.
Yeah. And speaking as someone who sat in an office for 20 years, I can personally testify to the health effects it can have on you, right? And my posture is terrible. It's something I work on every day. I've had other health effects. So the getting up and moving, letting your brain just decompress. On my walks, it's not quite meditative, but it's very much of my wife and I will talk for a few minutes, and as we kind of get into the rhythm, we both go quiet and we go into our own little land, and then we'll come back with some ideas. And it's been really, really beneficial, just from a mental clarity point of view, to come back.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's kind of how we decided to leave our jobs at the same time.
Nice.
Yeah, so be careful. If you go on a walk, you might retire early.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So our general prescription here is 10,000 steps a day. Fitbits, Apple Watches, all these things do it, but you can also get, I think you can get them for like $5 on Amazon. You just get little step counters. So it's pretty easy to find a way to track your steps. And it's just something, it can buzz you and it can do all these other things too. The other things that kind of fall into this category, and something that's really helped me too, is every morning I start my day with 5 to 10 minutes of moving around. So I've got a note by my coffee maker. When I brew coffee, it says do mobility. I go and I do like a little 5-minute get blood flow and warm up like we do in classes. And then I pick one area on my body that needs extra help. And I grab a lacrosse ball, a foam roller, or I do a static stretch or a band or whatever I'm doing. I do some dedicated work, and then that way every single day for 10 minutes I'm starting my day out with doing something, as opposed to, oh, now you're coming to the 5:30 p.m. class, oh, and it's the first time you've squatted today. It's like, let's just go ahead and get the first squat out of the day early and start claiming those positions.
Yeah.
And then that's great at work, taking a 5-minute break. Just do things like we do for our warm-ups. It's like that gets blood flowing, but it also increases your range of motion. And now we can start talking about tissue, joint health. We can start talking about the full picture as we do these things.
And even at the office, you will get some strange looks, but a small kettlebell you can take to your cube, you can do squats, you can do push-ups. People are going to look at you and ask you weird random questions.
Yeah, that's the thing, is they end up asking questions, but that's the opportunity. What you start seeing is you start like a snowball effect at the office.
Yeah.
And then they start walking a little more. They start being like, oh, well, I don't do kettlebells, but I do blank. And then you see them doing whatever they're doing, which to us might be weird, but they're doing something, which is really cool that you're the one who caused that, without having to tell everyone to do something, just leading by example.
Yeah, so break out of the office mentality a little bit. Don't worry about your peers, what they're going to say about you. Do some squats.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So I think the big picture here is we've got this under control. Just keep coming consistently. And since you have that, it makes these other things easier. The lowest hanging fruit on the whole list is going to be sleep. And the more of these we do, they all work together, and they're all going to make the other things even easier. So once we tie sleep in, now tying in one of these two pieces gets easier and easier and easier, and these all have profound effects on results.
Which ones would you say is the hardest? Which of the four?
Nutrition.
Okay, I agree.
I think by far. And it's not the hardest. It's the hardest to figure out how to do. It's not like hard because you're always hungry and what you're eating tastes bad. I feel like that's what people think.
Right.
It's the hardest because you have to learn things.
Right.
You have to learn, where do I go to get real food? What does a plate look like?
Right.
And then we also see this is where, well, people make a lot of mistakes here, but this is where people make the biggest mistakes, is they'll hear what we're saying or what somebody's saying, and they'll try and implement it, and it just won't be 100% there. They'll be close.
Right.
But then that's where coaches and friends and people can come in and help out and kind of point you in the right direction. Because not all of this stuff is effort-based. Just because you're trying, you might be trying off of some bad information.
Right.
There's a lot, like fat is bad, there we go. If
Yeah.
you're working off of that old, outdated information, you might be really digging yourself into a hole instead of getting yourself out of these holes. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people that desperately want more results, and they are working their butts off in the gym. And then they're trying kinda on the nutrition, but it's once we get this whole thing kind of worked in, that's where we really see people make changes fast. And when we're doing things simply for aesthetic reasons and not for the whole picture, it just ends up not being sustainable. So all of these practices are things that make life easier, not harder.
Yeah.
Do y'all have anything to add before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. We've covered a
I
lot.
don't think so.
All
I
right.
think that's it.
Let's hope the microphone actually stayed on. And
Did you
we,
press record?
let's hope we recorded this.
Thinking that, I thought, oh no.
Jesus. Fingers crossed. Did it record?